Alright, Shalom Akim. First off, I want to give all praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, and double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who rule well. And peace and salutations to you, sincere Akim, that's pushing out this word. And the hopeful elect out there, man, keep pushing. What I want to do is just go into some history, man, on those Amalekites and Khazarian Jewish people, man. Because if you go throughout history or whatnot, those Jewish people, that, you know, the people that are calling themselves Jews that are in the land of Israel and everything like that, they're from the Khazarian Empire. And I have the resource I'm using right here to go into those points is a book called The 13th Tribe by Arthur Koestler. And you know, I kept hearing about the so-called Jewish people being from the Khazarian Empire, so you know, I decided to look into it, and I was really edified by certain points that was brought out in the book. So hey, Lord willing, it's edifying unto you. And yeah, I'm gonna go straight into scripture real quick before I go into this information. This is Revelations 2:9. It says, I know thy works and tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich, and I know the blasphemy, which is a dirty filthy lie, of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. So we know that in these end times there's going to be a group of people that are calling themselves Jews, but they aren't, you know, but they're lying, you know, and it says just like that, they're the synagogue of Satan. And what we know, you know, through the spirit and going through history, they're from the top tribe of Edom, man, of Esau, which is the Amalekites. And throughout history, you know, then they became known as the Khazarian Empire. But even before they were in the Khazarian Empire, which was in the 8th century or whatnot, they were called the Serpent People, man. And you can look that account up. As a matter of fact, I might have a quote around here, just to prove that statement from a quote. Yeah, it says, yeah, so before the Khazars were converted to Jews, they were called the Serpent People. And this is from the protocols of the learned and elders, the protocols of the learned elders of Zion. And this is the quote straight from it. It says, the whole long path we have trodden is ready now to close its cycle of the symbolic snake by which we symbolize our people. So they were calling themselves the Serpent People, and you can look that up and go into that if you'd like to, but they were calling themselves the Serpent People before they were known as the Khazars in the Khazarian Empire. But yeah, just to give you a background, you know, so once we were ruling the Holy Roman Empire, you know, when Septimius Severus came into power, which was an Israelite, you know, when Israelites first came into, or really came into power and ruling Europe and everything like that, we pushed these Edomites into the Caucasus Mountains, you know, and to different parts of Europe and everything like that. But a major area they were pushed into the Caucasus Mountains, and that's where these Khazars were dwelling at that time. And I'm gonna go straight into some of that now. So this is out of the book that I mentioned, The 13th Tribe, from Arthur Koestler. This is the third page from chapter 1, second paragraph. It says, the country of the Khazars, a people of Turkish stock. And when you go into history, a lot of people with that word Turkish is referred to their language, not really their ethnicity. Really goes into their language. And just to prove that point, this is page 6. This is what it says about that on the one of the last paragraphs on that page. It says, thus the term Turk, in the sense in which it was used by medieval writers and often also by modern ethnologists, refers primarily to language and not race. You know, so that's referring to the language that they were using during that time period. And I'm going to continue on back on page 3. The country of the Khazars, a people of Turkish stock, occupied a strategic key position at the vital gateway between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea. Now, between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea, you have the Caucasus Mountains, you know, and even throughout this book, you know, it says, you know, that they were in the Caucasus Mountains straight verbatim and whatnot, but just to pull out that point. But yeah, but this is in this time period is during 740 AD and everything, when they were pushed to those Caucasus Mountains. And I'm gonna just go straight into some key points in this book. So this is page 4. This is the second paragraph. It says, a few years later, probably AD 74, the king, his court, and the military ruling class embraced the Jewish faith, and Judaism became the state religion of the Khazars. So it says they adopted this faith and this religion. They adopted the ways of the Jews. And this is the next paragraph down. It says, it was the Jewish faith which became the official religion of the ruling strata of society. Needless to say, the acceptance of the Jewish faith as the state religion of an ethnically non-Jewish people could be the subject of interesting speculations. So it tells you right there that these people, they weren't descendants of the real Jews, but they adopted the traditions and the faith of the true Jews, you know. And I'm gonna go to scripture real quick on that. Let's see. This is Isaiah chapter 46. I'm gonna go to verse 3. Isaiah 46 and 3. Hearken unto me, O house of Jacob, and all the remnant of the house of Israel, which are born by me from the belly, which are carried from the womb. So you can't adopt a nationality. You cannot adopt a bloodline. It has to be from birth, man. That's like me waking up and saying I want to be Chinese one day, and then because I say I want to be Chinese and I start acting Chinese, that's not gonna make me Chinese, you know. Not through blood or whatnot, even though I act in a certain way. But that's, you know, that's what they're doing. They're acting a certain way and trying to persuade themselves to be a people that they aren't, you know. And then another thing too, man, they're trying to follow the laws, statutes, and commandments to a certain extent, you know. And it's not for them, man. It wasn't given unto them. You can't be converted into it, like I mentioned before. But this is Psalms 50 and 16. But unto the wicked, and we know who the wicked are. You know, the chief of the wicked are these so-called Jewish people, man. They're the ones that that funded the slave ships. As a matter of fact, man, it's even accounts, you know, to prove that they were funding the slave ships in those auction blocks. What they would do is, if it was one of those Jewish holidays, then they would close the auction blocks, you know. They would stop all auctioning of the slaves and everything like that because it was their Jewish holidays. That proves to you also who was in power at that time, you know, who was funding all of that. But even now, man, they're the ones that are funding putting GMOs out, you know, and everything like that. They're the wicked of the society. They're the chief of the wicked, you know. But continuing on, but unto the wicked of the Most High saith, what hast thou to do to declare my statutes, or that thou shouldest take my covenant in thy mouth? So what are these people doing, declaring his statutes, his judgments, you know, even trying to follow his commandments, man. The commandments that were given to the children of Israel, which they aren't, man. And they're claiming that they're the children of God, man. That's blasphemy, man. That's complete blasphemy. And like it says in the latter part, or that thou shouldest take my covenant in thy mouth. They think they're gonna have the covenant, man. They're gonna hear the blessings, you know. But they're all out of whack, man. They don't even believe in who we know or who they know as Jesus Christ or whatnot. They just respect him as a prophet. They don't believe he was the son of Yahweh, you know, the only begotten son. And they're bugged out. But they're Edomites, man. They're gonna get theirs anyways, man. They're gonna get theirs anyways. So, but anyways, going back into these accounts that were written in this book, some good key points that I like to point out. Let's see. This is the page 4 again, and this is the first, second, third, fourth. This is about the 5th paragraph. All right. So it says, "What is in dispute is the fate of the Jewish Khazars after the destruction of their empire in the 12th or 13th century." So in the 12th and 13th century, that's when the Khazarian Empire was pretty much done with, you know, for lack of better words, they were done with. But continuing on, it says, on this problem the sources are scant, but various late medieval Khazar settlements are mentioned in Crimea, in the Ukraine, and Hungary, Poland, and Lithuania. The general picture that emerges from these fragmentary pieces of information is that is that of a migration of Khazar tribes and communities into those regions of Eastern Europe. So it tells you right there that they migrated from the Caucasus Mountains into Eastern Europe and to all those places that was mentioned. And I'm going to continue on. It says mainly Russia and Poland. So even those Russians, man, like Putin and everything like that, man, those are Edomites, man. A lot of those are Amalekites, man. It says, where at the dawn of the modern age, the greatest concentration of the Jews were found, and we know those are the fake Jews, you know. This has led several historians to conjecture that a substantial part and perhaps the majority of Eastern Jews, and hence of world Jewry, might be of Khazar and not of Semitic origin. So it tells you right there, man, there's speculation like, man, you know, from where their descendants, from what their history says, you know, that they aren't the true people that they say they are. And I'm going to jump down to a later paragraph. It says, the descendants of this settlement, those who stayed where they were, those who immigrated to the United States and to other countries, and those who went to Israel, constitute now the large majority of world Jewry. And the next paragraph says, this was written before the full extent of the Holocaust was known, which, you know, we already know that was some bull, that was a hoax anyways. But that does not after the fact, but that does not alter the fact, Salakia, that the large majority of surviving Jews in the world is of Eastern European and thus perhaps mainly of Khazar origin. If so, this will mean that their ancestors came not from the Jordan, but from the Volga, not from Canaan, but from the Caucasus, once believed to be the cradle of the Aryan race. So it tells you right there, man, that that they're from the Caucasus Mountains, man, and it says it throughout there. But I also want to get into let me see. Oh, the reasoning why they converted to Judaism. Because if you read this more of this book, you know, it tells you that even then, you know, they knew of the Jews. Of course, they knew of the Jews and everything like that. We were in battle with them, anyways. You know, in different parts of history, and it's even accounts in Exodus and Genesis and everything like that of us being at war with the Amalekites. You know, but the reason of them why they decided to convert to Judaism per se. And I'm gonna go into this. This is page 23. This is the third paragraph, and I'm gonna go ahead and read it. It says, at the beginning of the 8th century, the world was polarized between the two superpowers representing Christianity and Islam. Their ideological doctrines were welded to power politics pursued by the classical methods of propaganda, subversion, and military conquest. The Khazar Empire represented a third force, which had proved equal to either of them, both as an adversary and an ally, but it could only maintain its independence by accepting neither Christianity nor Islam, for either choice would have automatically subordinated it to the authority of the Roman Empire or the Caliph of Baghdad. So what we had going on during this time period around 740 AD, a little bit before then, there was a conflict of powers. There were two major powers during that time period. It was us ruling in the Holy Roman Empire, you know, and they were practicing Christianity a lot during that time, and then you had people in Islam, the Arabs and everything. They were practicing Islam and following different belief systems, but the Khazars were right in the midst of that, you know. So it was like if they converted to Christianity, then they would be under the Roman rule, which was us during that time period. And if they converted into Islam, then they would be pretty much under them, you know, under their rulership. So for them to be independent, they decided to try and convert to something else, you know, that was separate from any one of them, so they won't have to be under their complete rulership. Now I'm gonna jump down a few paragraphs. It says, there can be no question that the ruler was actuated by political motives in adopting Judaism. to embrace Mohammedanism, Salakia, would have made him the spiritual dependent of the caliphs, who attempted to press their faith on the Khazars, and in Christianity laid the danger of his becoming an ecclesiastical vassal of the Roman Empire. Judaism was a reputable religion with sacred books which both Christian and Mohammedan respected. So it was a political move for them to do that, so that they won't have to take on the rulership, like I said, of the European or the Arabs during that time. And it goes on to say it elevated him above the heathen barbarians and secured him against the interference of caliph or emperor. But he did not adopt, along with the circumcision, the intolerance of the Jewish cult. And it goes on. But that was the political reasoning to why they converted to Judaism or the ways of the Jews. And let me see what I want to go into. Oh yeah, I wanted to go into pretty much how these people were living, and some of the characteristics of those Khazars during that time period, and how it lines up with the book of Job, even, And I'm gonna go to Job real quick. Salakia. This is Job. I think it's chapter. Yeah, this is Job chapter 30. It says, "But now they that are younger than I have me in derision, whose fathers I would have disdained to have set with the dogs of my flock." Telling you how vile these beasts are. He wouldn't even have his dogs to dwell with them. And you see that now, if their dogs were dwelling with his Salakia, if these Edomites were dwelling with dogs, they'll be committing bestiality. You see that now. They just passed bestiality in Canada, I believe so. I think it was Canada. Yeah, they passed that law of bestiality. So you know that now, man. And that was the same thing then. Job knew what was up. He was like, man, I ain't having these Edomites. They're viler than the earth anyways. And I'm going to continue on. Yea, whereunto might the strength of their hands profit me, in whom old age was perished. For want and famine they were solitary, fleeing into the wilderness, in former time desolate and waste, who cut up mallows by the bushes and juniper roots for their meat. They were driven forth from among men. They cried after them as after a thief, to dwell in the cliffs of the valleys, in caves of the earth, and in the rocks. So it tells you right there, man, that they were dwelling in caves in the earth. That was the Caucasus Mountains, man. That was an example, and that's where they were dwelling. And this is verse 7. Among the bushes they brayed, under the nettles they were gathered together. They were children of fools, yea, children of base men. They were viler than the earth. And there's some accounts in this book, man, that tells you how vile they were, and it tells you how they look. And I'm gonna go to that. So this is page 6, and this is this is page 6. This is at the top. It says, the description that have come down to us originate in hostile sources and cannot be taken at face value. But once you realize, once you read it, you'll be like, dang, this lines up right with the scriptures also, And I'm gonna continue on. As to the Khazars, an Arab chronicler writes, they are to the north of the inhabited earth towards the seventh clime, having over their heads the constellation of the plough. Their land is cold and wet. Accordingly, their complexions are white, their eyes blue, their hair flowing and predominantly reddish, their bodies large and their natures cold. Their general aspect is wild. So they were beasts, man. They were acting, and it tells you, man, they had the blue eyes and everything, man. That's the same thing now. They damn near look the same now. You know what I'm saying? And continuing on, this is another account of another person writing about how they were, and this is straightforward what it says. This is the next paragraph down. It says, wild men with hideous faces and the manners of wild beasts. But wait, here it is. Eaters of blood. And that's the same thing, man. That's the same thing they do now when they get their steaks and everything. They want it dripping with blood, just like Esau, man. He sold his birthright, Salakia. He sold his birthright for some uncooked meat. You know, some bloody meat. That's the same thing that they were doing here, man, when they were dwelling in the Caucasus Mountains, when they were the Khazarian Empire, man. These people were vile, man. Dang, I forgot what I was finna say. But yeah, those beasts are vile, man. But that was just a little history on the Khazarian Empire, you know, and like I said, you know, in the beginning, man, once they started off in the Caucasus Mountains, and then they started migrating to those different lands that I mentioned, like in the Ukraine, you know, in different parts of Germany, Europe, Poland, and different things like that, you know, and they were calling themselves the real Jews or whatnot. Even you know what, I'm gonna see if I can find it real quick. The Egyptian ruler at one point, I'm gonna find it real quick. Hold on, Salakia, bear with me. Egyptian ruler. Salakia. I just want to make sure I quote this right. I don't want to go off. Yeah, and what the quote pretty much was saying, like, you know, he was this was the second president of Egypt, and this is a quote that he said too. I'm gonna go to it. Man, they're giving me a hard time right now, Akin. Well, anyways, you know, I'll just, you know, pretty much say it from what I remember. But what it was saying was pretty much the Jews, there will continually be war in the land, or you will continually fight, or, you know, I won't accept you. We won't accept you guys, because the Jews left black. They left black and came back white. You know, and because of that, there's always going to be war. There isn't going to be peace. You know, and that's prophecy also, man. You know, because once we're in that land, there's going to be peace among the earth, man. There's going to be no more wars, and that's what the second president of Egypt mentioned. You know, but hey, man, I just hope that was edifying, man. There's a ton of more great points, man, throughout this book, and it's, you know, it's real good information, man. You can look into it like I did. You know, I just looked it up on Google and printed it out. It's called The 13th Tribe by Arthur Koestler. And yeah, just look into that. But like I said, man, hope that was edifying. And shalom.